Alright, these are my top 10 most underrated VR games of all time. I'm gonna be doing a lot more videos like this because I actually broke my radius bone in my arm. So I won't be able to actually make gameplay videos for maybe a couple of months, at least until I get my cast off. Anyways, let's get right into it. Shut the fuck. Alright, at number 10 we have Metro Awakening. Now you've actually probably heard of this VR game, probably also heard that it's pretty good. But the reason why I feel like it's underrated is because I feel like it was overshadowed by Behemoth and Alien Rogue Incursion, because I feel like those games were talked about way more than Metro Awakening. Even though I feel like Metro Awakening is the best out of the 3 games. I'm like 50% complete through Metro Awakening. I've already played for 6 hours, which is actually already longer than a lot of other VR games' actual runtime. But Metro Awakening, out of the 3 games, has such an amazing story. Vertigo games have gotten a lot better at telling stories. I feel like the story for Arizona Sunshine 2 was actually pretty good and actually had a lot of emotional moments, and they really take that up a notch in Metro Awakening. Visually, this game is absolutely stunning and the atmosphere is so unmatched. I feel like to get Metro right, you really have to get the atmosphere right, and they did an amazing job. This game is eerie all the time and really has you on edge, pause. But because of that, that's why Metro Awakening is at number 10. At number 9, we have Wanderer. Now, Wanderer honestly should have been in my top 10 VR games of all time list. I completely forgot about it, and that's one of the reasons why it's on this list, because I feel like nobody talks about it anymore, except when they talk about the remake that's actually coming out this month. By the way, I'm super excited for that, and once I get this cast off, that's like the only game we're gonna be playing, that and Hitman. But Wanderer was honestly one of the best PSVR games of all time. It was such an amazing concept, and it was executed so well in VR. Team at Mighty Eyes really impressed me, especially being able to make it feel intuitive on the original PSVR, which most of the games on that headset felt pretty clunky, except for Wanderer. Wanderer visually looks amazing, and it looks even better in the remake. The story was actually really intriguing, and all the locations and puzzle mechanics and even combat were really well done. This is genuinely probably in my top 10, top 5 VR games of all time, but I feel like nobody talks about it, which kind of goes for all the other games on the list. They're all really, really good games, and when they are talked about, they're talked about in high praise, but not enough. At number 8, we have Red Matter 2. Now, Red Matter is a classic, and a lot of people remember that game, but Red Matter 2 really sets the bar for any headset in terms of visuals. Red Matter 2 is another game I want to finish. Puzzles are really good. There's a lot of fun interactions as well. The physics feel amazing. They have that one mechanic from Half-Life Alyx where you have to flick your wrist to grab an object. They added combat now. Overall, the game is just a really solid sequel and one of the best looking VR games ever created. Now, this game I feel like is talked about probably the most out of all the games on the list. This and Wanderer can probably compete for that 10th spot in my top 10 list because both of these games are pure masterpieces. At number 7, we have Stormland. Now, Stormland is made by Insomniac Games. It's kind of crazy. I didn't know that they were into VR, but they were actually in the early days of PC VR, but then haven't done anything for the PSVR 2, even though they're owned by Sony, so I don't know what they're doing. But Stormland, I feel like, was probably their best game. This was exclusively for the Rift, which means 10 people played it. And Stormland isn't a perfect game. I don't feel like it's even probably in my top 20. It is a really good game. I think Stormland's movement is perfect. Insomniac knows how to make perfect movement in their games. Spider-Man and Stormland both have amazing movement systems. Stormland's combat is fun, but it does get a little repetitive. And the story is alright. The visuals look amazing. I love the way Stormland looks. And also the fact that it's also open world, which is kind of crazy, makes traversing these worlds just so much more fun and really puts a lot more content in there than a lot of other VR games do. And that's why it's at number 7.
So I wait for you.
At number 6, we have HeartShot. Now, this game was made by a very small team. The game is actually really solid. At release, it was kind of finicky, but they improved the game a lot and added a lot of more customization features for players. And now the game is actually really, really solid. The gunplay feels good. It's very cinematic too. And the soundtrack slaps so hard. HeartShot's soundtrack is so good. Guns feel good, and just the sound design and everything just feels really nice. Nobody really talks about this game because this came out on PC VR when nobody plays PC VR anymore. And I feel like a few VR YouTube channels covered this game, but not a lot of people know about it. At number 5, we have Song in the Smoke. Now, Song in the Smoke was in my top 10 VR games of all time. I'm not really that into survival games, except for this one. This one had me so addicted. The gameplay loop is perfect. On PSVR 2, this game looks gorgeous. Also one of the scariest VR games I've ever played, mainly due to the Wendigo and the lion and the panther. Those parts of the game made me actually quit the game, which is why I haven't finished it. I'm not even halfway through and I've already played for like 10 hours. This game is super long too, like 20 to 30 hours long. Now the reason why it's at number 5 is because when this game is talked about, people just gush about it, okay? And that's for good reason, because it's literally almost the perfect VR survival game. But it's not talked about nearly as much as it should be. It should honestly be in a lot of other people's top 10 list, and I don't get why they don't have it up there. But yeah, that's why I have it at number 5. At number 4, we have Lonn. Now, like HeartShot, Lonn came out for Steam VR at a point where nobody was really using Steam VR. Lonn is basically like Cyberpunk plus Boneworks. So like that same physics system, but in a cyberpunk setting. Lonn's campaign is 10 times better than Boneworks and Bone Lab's campaign because it has an actual story. And even though the story is like okay, it's like 10 times better than anything that happens in both those games. Both their stories kind of suck. And Lonn used to be in my top 10 favorite VR games of all time. They updated the game for a little bit. I think the studio had to stop working on the game. If there's one game that was really underrated on this list, it's definitely Lonn. The studio ended up having to like can making a sequel or a part 2, even though they planned on doing that, and also bringing it over to different platforms like Quest or PSVR 2. They had that in mind, but then they didn't get enough support financially probably to actually bring it over. And it was also a very small team. I think there's like 4 people on the team, and it's really disappointing to see teams do that where they make a really good game and they just don't get the support that they deserve. And that's exactly why Lonn's at number 4. At number 3, we have Defector. Now, Defector is one of those games where it's just a bunch of action movie set pieces. If you want your Uncharted in VR, then you've got Defector. That's your Uncharted. That high action, just pure adrenaline throughout the entire game. Now, I honestly don't get why people didn't really like this game all that much. There's a ton of stuff going for it. That opening plane section is one of the best moments in any VR game I've ever played. I get the game is also really short. It's like a fun 3 to 4 hours. High budget, high quality. But when people talk about the game, they kind of like have mixed feelings on it. I don't really get where that's coming from. I just think it's just pure fun, like throughout the entire thing, which is exactly why it's at number 3. And at number 2, we have Jurassic World Aftermath. Now, this is one of the best stories ever told in VR. It's up there with Half-Life Alyx for me and Lone Echo. Honestly, I don't know what it was about the story, but the whole storyline just felt so personal. And since the game is broken up into 2 parts, you get to like dissect the first part of the game, and then when the second part came out, you kind of felt more connection, especially after that ending. That ending is so good. Jurassic World Aftermath is what I feel like Jurassic World should be in gaming. Running from raptors, solving puzzles, the occasional part with the T-Rex or a different dinosaur that kind of separates the pacing of the gameplay a little bit. The soundtrack's great, the atmosphere is great, the dinosaur AI is actually pretty well done. I feel like it's probably as good as Alien Rogue Incursion, if not actually better, because you can't actually kill any of the dinosaurs. You have to lure them out, and there's not really much of that in Alien Rogue Incursion. And that's why I have Jurassic World Aftermath at number 2. But at number 1, we have a recent game, and that's Arken Age. I know, shut up. Now, when people talk about Arken Age, they talk about it in high praise, but not high enough. This game just came out, and I feel like nobody's talking about it. Besides the first week of its launch, I haven't heard anything about it. This game is definitely top 5 VR games of all time for me. The combat is perfect. It's the perfect combat in any VR game. It's the most fluid, fun, and intuitive combat I've ever felt in any game. There's so many different weapon mods that you can change your loadout of your weapons that fit your personal playstyle, and I actually did that a lot. I ended up actually changing my loadout throughout the entire campaign, which I feel like a lot of games don't do. You find a specific weapon that you like and you just stick with it. But in Arken Age, there's a ton of weapons that you like, especially when you combine them with different weapon mods and then they have a different outcome on your gun. This game is also like 15-20 hours long. Now, there's not many boss fights, but I think the 3 boss fights that are in there are great, especially the final boss. One of my recent videos where I fought the second boss of the game, where he has the flamethrower and the giant axe. I mean, come on, that's just too hype, man. The music too at the same time. That fight is so good. Visually, it looks great. Also, the movement is so good. You can climb, you can jump, you can swim. They have all these great mechanics, and they combine so well to make such a great game. Also, like looting and getting like different materials and collectibles is something that I just don't do in other VR games, but have the urge to do in this game, which is why I actually ended up getting the platinum for this game. The only other VR games I've done that for were Horizon Call of the Mountain and Synapse. Horizon Call of the Mountain sucks, but I kind of glazed it in its first year when it came out, and Synapse is a really good game. Synapse had a really fun and addictive gameplay loop, just like Arken Age, which is probably one of the reasons why I platinumed both those games. Genuinely one of the greatest VR games ever made, and it was also only made by 4 people, which just hats off to them, and it's exactly why it's at number 1. If you enjoyed this list, then make sure to like and subscribe, and maybe I'll do another video, or maybe I won't. No, I definitely will. Subscribe right now, or else I'll like urinate on your face.